Hi, everybody. To my soul family, love you guys. I appreciate you showing up for me here. And, I thought I'd try a slightly different format because you guys usually only see me from the head up. And, I guess if I'm looking for somebody who is going to be aligned with me and, because quite honestly, I am looking for love. I am looking to get into a relationship again after losing my late husband. And, yes, I can go to dating apps. Yes, I can go out and meet people. And, I probably will in some capacity, while I'm in this dating phase. But if I'm going to meet somebody online, you might as well see exactly who I am. So, it saves time for everybody because I know a lot of people, the dating phase is, everybody's on their best behavior and, you don't really get to see who somebody is until, a few months into it. Every once in a while, you might come across somebody who is, who's open like me, that wants to just put everything out on the table just so you know what you're getting. And that's kind of how I live my life anyways, is, you might as well see exactly what you're getting because why waste time, right? And, the last few videos that I've done have been kind of low energy, and it's just because, of everything that I'm going through. I'm not a perfect person. And, I keep a fairly clean house, but it's not perfect, much like I am. And, I love this chair. And unfortunately, if I end up getting, if I have to move, I'm probably going to lose this. And this is probably my most prized possession, so to speak, that I have. And, I'm really not about materialism, but the things that I do have, I really, truly like. And my hope is to find somebody who is kind, compassionate, caring. Yes, I know there are a lot of men that, they're manly men and all that, but I know that there's some compassionate men out there too that, think with more than just their head. And, let's be real, nobody's perfect, but we have to find who is going to be perfect for us. And, even if I don't find somebody I love, I'm fine because I love myself enough to, keep myself going for as long as I need to. And, if I have to live in my car or wherever, so be it. Yes, it's a scary concept, but, it's only because I haven't done it before. I hope not to. I hope that there's somebody who, may help me out. And even if you're just looking for somebody who wants to room with you, I will be looking for work, but I have to kind of know where I'm going to be before I can do that. And, if there is somebody out there in YouTube land that is able to help me out, I greatly appreciate it because, everybody goes through a tough time. And unfortunately, I don't have family that I can count on. And most of my friends, they have kids and everything else going on. And they don't have the capability of being able to help me out in that way. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a little tour of my home just so you can kind of see what it is, how I kind of keep my house. Yes, I do my dishes. I have things out on the counter. I need to put them away. Okay. But for the most part, I have 3 dogs, but you could barely tell aside from the covers on my couch that I have them because I do clean up after them. They're very well behaved. They get along very well. As a matter of fact, most of the time, the only thing you hear in the video that you would know that I have a dog is that you hear one of my dogs wagging in the background, hitting his tail on, whatever piece of furniture I'm sitting on at that time. But, just to kind of get an idea of my personality, yes, I have art. I love art. I create art. This is probably one of my favorite paintings that I bought at the Spoleto Festival in Charleston, South Carolina. I have a bookshelf. Most of the books are kind of moved at this point just because I am going to have to be out of here by the end of the month. So I have to kind of start packing things up regardless. So, just a little bit of my world. I know it's not perfect. And, the point of my videos isn't necessarily to get a huge following. It's more or less just to help those people who are going through a tough time or who need some healing, that have not gone through therapy. And, because not everybody can afford it. I have been through therapy. I've gone through radical acceptance therapy. It's not an easy thing, because when you go to therapy, I know everybody seems to think, oh, if you go to therapy, it solves all your problems. It doesn't. It's a lot of work. You spend a lot of time trying to figure out where the wounds came from. And, that's not always easy, because there are things in your life that you don't want to face again. You've already faced them once. You're like, let the healing begin, right? And so a couple of my dogs came down because they hear me down here talking. But, I wanted to just give you a real version of me, because, yes, I can be on the videos talking about healing and helping people and wishing well for everybody. And yes, I very much believe in God. And, I believe that God is what drives all of this. And, you can call it source, you can call it, Buddha, Vishnu, Allah, whomever you want to call it. It's all the same thing. It's all the light that brings everything together. And, I grew up as a Roman Catholic, and, I don't necessarily follow that religion anymore, because as much as I believe that religion offers a lot to, create a society that is more humane and kind to each other, I also see the control mechanism in it, and that's where I have to leave organized religion behind. I have a direct relationship with God, and I believe everyone should. I don't think that everybody should be told what to believe. I think that you can be a good person, you can be a moral person without following a church. Now, church offers a whole support system that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. And it's not that I don't like socializing, because I do with the right people. But when you do go to a church, you find all gamuts of the spectrum when it comes to believers, how they treat others, and everything else. So that's why I believe in having a personal relationship with God. And if people align with me, that's great. And if you don't, I wish you well. And, I do not want to take you off the path that you are set on. As far as finding love again, I want to find a godly man. I want somebody, you don't have to be necessarily, Christian, following the word of Christ. I like that, but it's not necessary. And, if you want to put your faith in one person, that's fine. I choose God because God is everything. I believe, yes, he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to kind of help get everybody back in alignment with what the program really truly is. And it's to find out who you are on this journey. It has nothing to do with necessarily following a Bible verse. The Bible verse is just a reference so that if you ever get lost, it's a great place to go to so that you can look back and maybe it can help you through some things. Now, I'm not the kind of Christian where I can spout off Bible verses, because it's not what I've been led to believe. And it's not that I don't believe it, because I do believe the Bible. It's simply that it's how you interpret it, and everybody interprets it different. And that's fine. You should, if you're a kind, compassionate person, definitely big points. If you appreciate art, I would love somebody who's creative, who is a do-it-yourselfer. Quite honestly, my dream is to have a homestead where I can be self-sufficient, so I don't have to worry about these kinds of things. My late husband, God rest his soul, I love him. I will always love him. He's, he helped me through a lot of different things, but our marriage wasn't perfect. It's difficult dealing with somebody who's gone through addiction, and he was addicted to oxycodone. So, as much as, I can praise him. There were many things about him that he wasn't a good protector of our family. And, you know, I when he passed away, there wasn't a lot of life insurance. I basically got left a very minimal amount, which covered his funeral expenses and a few months of my expenses. What's kept me going is, my savings and my finance, being able to manage a budget on my own. And it hasn't been easy because I've been looking for work since he's passed away. And, I'm not 20 years old. So it's a little bit more difficult to find a job that is going to pay my bills and is going to be aligned with the kind of work that I do. Now, in the past, I was an analytical chemist at Boeing, and I worked in the research and technology department. And not only did I work in the chemical analysis lab, but I also worked in the 3D and the assembly labs. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, I understand because a lot of people aren't up to speed with, Boeing and everything else. Now, I worked on the 787 program, which is their carbon fiber plane. And, there were a lot of things that were still in the innovation stage because, it was a relatively new plane when I started working there. And so, we were inventing different ways to accelerate curing of sealant and, how can we make this so that, when we go to make this plane, it stays together and there aren't, little inclusions in the space, where the plane actually is so that we have a safe form of transportation. So, I basically helped with the quality testing of all of the fluids, which were fuel, hydraulic fluid, coolants, that sort of thing. But, we also did water testing, which was, when you initially put water on a plane, you want to make sure all of the tanks are clean. So, we did E. coli testing just to make sure that if people went into the bathroom or they got water from the plane, it was potable. And I loved that job. I didn't necessarily enjoy the corporate nature of the job, but I loved that every day that I went in, it was something different. And, there were a lot of things that I got to learn while I was there. And, my husband worked there too. So it was kind of nice being able to see him during the day so that, we weren't necessarily spending 9 hours away from each other. And I really, I miss that. And, when we moved from Charleston, South Carolina, he started working in a different job and he told me that, if I wanted to go ahead and start a business, go ahead and do that, which was what I did. And, I've always loved creating things. And soap was something that I, understood a lot about because I have a chemistry background. So I started off with that and then I built up to, I enjoyed that and I still make soap for my own. It's much better for your skin. It's not as harsh. And I decided to go more of a creative route and I started doing painting. And so I had many paintings. There were some that I sold. There were some that I have in a box. I also did ink art and, and of course I have stained glass. One of my favorite pieces I have right here next to me is this pumpkin here. It's got some cute little tendrils that, I soldered onto it. But, this is what I love doing. This is my passion. And I want to do this more than anything in the world. And unfortunately, right now, my funding is such that I'm unable to do it. I have a website that people can buy items from, and I understand stained glass it's not a cheap thing that you can buy, and it's an expensive hobby if you're getting into it. But I know I was talking about love, and now I'm on some other tangent. But basically, that is my passion. I love doing it more than anything else in this entire planet. The only thing I probably love more than stained glass are my dogs. And my dogs are a package deal with me. You know, I love my dogs. I would never give them up. I rescued them from shelters. So I do not have the heart to put them back there, and I will keep them until, you know, until forever if I have to. And, you know, when I dedicated myself to a forever home, I meant it. And that's just the kind of person that I am. You know, I know loyalty and values and caring about people have seemed to go out of fashion, but I'm not going to give up on it. I think it's something that most people are thirsting for these days. In a world of fake, people want genuine, and you will get that with me. You will always get that with me. It may not always be easy to hear, but you'll always get it with me. And, you know, just pardon me just for a minute while I grab a couple, you know, paintings here, but this is also the kind of work I do. You know, I love sacred geometry. I love flowers. And I specifically love sunflowers. They are my favorite flower. And you can see on my hat, which I painted myself, that yes, I love flowers. And if you take a look at most of my stained glass work, you'll see that it's the same. You know, you're gonna see that you know, what I say I am is what I am. And, you know, like I said, I'm not a young chicken anymore. I'm 50 years old, all right? And I do not see myself going back to doing something I dislike that sucks the soul out of me. I want to live my passion. I want to live my dream. And my hope is that this video reaches somebody who will see that in me and will allow me to do that and see the realness in me and appreciate that, because I appreciate that in other people too. I appreciate real. I appreciate people who are going to be direct with me, even if it might hurt my feelings for a few minutes. I'll get over it and I'll see what you're trying to say to me and, you know, try to find a solution so that everybody's happy in the equation. And that's who I am as a friend. That is who I am as a partner. That is who I am as a lover. And I am done dimming my light just to make other people comfortable. And I feel like my previous videos, I have done that just so that maybe I become more palatable, because I'm a different person. I love my pink hair. I love the color pink. I'm not trying to make a statement other than I love pink. And, you know, it sucks to have to be in this position where I am asking for people to help me. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do in my life, because I have been so extremely independent up to this point. And, you know, I'm done apologizing for who I am these days. And yes, you know, I've invested a little bit in crypto, and my hope is that, you know, what I've invested in turns into something more than what I've started. But of course, that takes time. And, you know, you can't do that without having a little bit of money to start that. And I don't have a lot into it because I don't have a lot of money to spend in it. But I want to build. If I have to start over, so, you know, that's basically what I'm doing. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially at 50 years old. At 20 years old, it was no problem finding a job. You know, everybody likes young. Even though I'm 50, I'm still, you know, very much a youthful person that has a lot of passion in them. And I know I'm meant for more than what's sitting in front of me right now. And anybody who's going through a tough time, I want you to have faith in knowing that you, just like me, have the power to make those changes if you're willing to put yourself out there. And this video is probably one of the toughest ones I've ever had to do, just because I'm not used to being this aggressive in getting what I want. But, you know, I'm starting to realize that the only way that I'm going to get what I want in my life is to be a little bit more aggressive towards, for myself, because nobody is just going to hand anything over. And I get that. People want to know that they're investing in something that's worthwhile. And, not only am I very creative, I am an intelligent person. I can talk about anything with anybody, minus sports. Sports is one of those things that I've just never really gotten into unless I'm playing it. And, when I was in high school, I played volleyball, I played softball. I was in track and did all that stuff. And I had a great time doing it. But it's not something I can, I would really enjoy doing at this point in my life. I've pretty much resorted to yoga because it allows me flexibility and I walk. And, it's kept me in the shape that I'm in. And for 50, I'm actually in fantastic shape. I don't take any kind of medication. I figure that it's mind over matter. And if I put good things into my body, I'll continue to live a healthy, happy life without having to put a bunch of poison. And, as far as my life partner, I want a man that is not afraid of a strong woman. I'm not saying that I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm simply saying that you respect my space just as I'm going to respect your space. Allowing each other to be able to do the things that we both desire. And if they happen to align, let's do them together, make things easier. And, I want more than just a roommate, which is basically what I had the last 7 years that my husband was around. And, I care very deeply about people. And it's why I haven't even toyed with dating until now, simply because I know how I will look at people and deeply appreciate them for who they are, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable with that. I'm looking for somebody who's healed. Somebody who's, if you've gone through therapy, awesome. If you haven't, maybe we can help each other heal. Let's just be kind to each other and listen to what the other person says and try to understand what the person is saying instead of just jumping to conclusions. Because I think that's what a lot of people do these days is instead of talking out what it is that they truly want, they just go off and start cheating, or, they end the relationship before it's even had a chance to really get going. And, making yourself vulnerable, I get it. It's scary because these people, anybody that you tell these things to, it's something that they could potentially use against you in some way, if you let them. But, I've gone through radical acceptance therapy. Things are what they are until they aren't. And I understand that. And, there's no problem in this world that doesn't have a solution. It may just take a little bit of time to work through it. And, I'm just looking for genuine people who are like-minded. If there's an artist community that, looks for residents to, that would allow me to have my dogs, bless you. That would be my absolute dream. I would love to be around like-minded people where we can create together. And, if you happen to be a gentleman, and I do mean a true gentleman, I'm interested in you. Looks, yes, there's people are attracted to what they're attracted to. But that is not the deciding factor for me. I look for content. I'm looking for somebody who's genuine and pure-hearted and is passionate and is not afraid to express how they feel. If you've gone through a rough time, if you've lost your spouse, if you're divorced, I'm interested in you. In children, I've never had kids of my own, but, I think in any situation, it really depends on the people and, it can work if the right chemistry is there. But I think I've talked for, quite a while here about what I'm about and what I'm looking for and what I'm hoping for. And, as far as a partner's concerned, yes, if you like sports, turn the sports game on. I'm probably going to go do a piece of artwork while you do it. I might come in and cuddle with you and watch the game for a little bit, but, it's not something that's going to capture my attention. And, if you're somebody who has a homestead or a farm, even better. Like I said, I'm looking for someone who wants to be independent, that doesn't necessarily have to rely on the system or the government in any way to make life going, keep it going. And, I am a hard worker. You know, I don't mind getting out in the field and picking vegetables or getting on a tractor and driving that around or mowing the lawn or anything like that. I did it in my last relationship. I don't see it changing going forward. I simply just want to be able to keep the life that I've built up to this point without having to lose everything that I've worked for. It scares me because I put my blood, heart, and soul into what I do to be able to get what I have. And unfortunately, the turn of events over the last year is putting me in a position where I may lose all of that. And I truly do not want that to happen because I would hate to see anybody else go through that for myself. And, I'm to a point now where the only way I would be able to keep the place I'm in is I have to come up with $15,000. The place that I'm living in has allowed me to stay in this for a few months without having to pay rent. But at the end of this month, they're going to remove me and they're going to throw everything that I have either in the trash or probably keep it as their own. And it breaks my heart that I've worked all my life to be able to keep, to have the very basic things that I have just go away. And, again, my hope is that this finds somebody who is in a position to be able to help me in some way. I don't know if you can give me money to put things in storage or to help me move, or if you have, a room over a garage or, any place that I would be able to allow to have myself and my dogs. And if I have to give things, if I have to give my material things up, yes, I'm not that attached to it to the point where, I'm going to go off the deep end if I lose them. Material things are nice. I've worked very hard for them, but they aren't what drive me. And, like I said, I truly hope that I find a kind-hearted soul out there that is, maybe looking for a companion that will allow me to look for a job so that, at least that way I can contribute monetarily in some way and maybe help you around the house a little bit. But I love you guys. May God and the universe always shine upon you. May you always have the energy to persevere. And may you always be able to find the passions in your life that keep you going. But I hope you have a great night. I love you again. I just wanted you to see who I am as a real person instead of just these little 3-minute snippets of, me getting angry at the betrayals in my life and the hard times that I'm having. Because I am a whole lot more when I'm not stressed out. And hopefully this video gave you a little insight on that. And if you can help me out, great. I'll have information in the description on how you can do that, as well as, a brief synopsis of who I am as a person. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment. Go ahead and send me an email. That will be in the description. And I truly, really hope that everybody has a safe home that they get to go to. They have family that loves them, or at least, people in their life that love them, which are their soul family. And, you'll always have food on the table and the sun always rises for you. But I guess this is all I have to say for now. And, I'm going to continue doing videos regardless of where my head may be. But I really, truly want to help heal our world and make it a better place for as long as I'm here. And if it's through art, if it's through words, I'm glad I'm able to help, even if it just helps one person. So I hope you have a great evening, and I love you guys, and I'll see you soon.